you launched a product in the past, what, like week and a half, 2 weeks? It's gone pretty well, right? Like in terms of your sale.
It's gone better than I probably would have ever imagined.
And
I do it in units sold because I'm trying to call. Yeah, we're sitting at like 35K for 2.5 weeks.
That is Tim. Tim is another Honest FBA member who recently launched a brand in the US on Amazon. And as you can see, it's gone pretty well. In this interview, we discuss sourcing outside of China, which Tim has done successfully, how you can still win with the branding game on Amazon, how to have the confidence to invest big in your first idea, and why being curious is a superpower when it comes to business. You'll also see that it looks like I'm in a nightclub during the filming of this, and that is because my light broke just before we pressed record and it was nighttime for us. So you're gonna have to put up with not really being able to see my face, although I'm sure some of you prefer that. Let's get stuck in. Tim, welcome to the Honest FBA channel, another Honest FBA student. We had to have you on, mate, because you've gone off like a rocket. Not to jump the gun here, but I'm sure people have seen on the intro to this a couple of teasers, and we wanted to dive into how it's all gone for you so far and kind of break down your Amazon journey, basically, up to now. So, again, welcome to the channel.
Thanks. Yeah.
So look, you jumped in. Well, actually, let's go. When did you start Amazon? Let's just dive straight into it. How long ago did you start learning?
So I have probably a pretty similar story to a lot of people in COVID, right? Where you're sitting around, you got nothing to do and just got an itch, or if you're ADD and you got to do something. So I started doing retail arbitrage because you read about that or see that in the videos on YouTube, and you find one other guy that does it and find yourself in the middle of a store during COVID times, scanning weights and just obscure things. And it worked. Like I think I sold probably hundreds and hundreds of different weights during that time, and then pools. And then there was a run. I don't know if it happened for you guys in the UK, but when they forced everyone outside, all the restaurants had to use like heaters during the winter. And so our like Home Depot is what we have, had hundreds of these. And on the West Coast, which is where I'm at, we didn't have any use for them because we're in the summer still and it's not cold yet. And so all the restaurants on the East Coast bought them all and there wasn't nothing left. So you buy them all here, ship them across the state, FBA. And I bought probably I rented a truck and picked up 200 in a weekend. And you're selling them for double, and it was just that type of thing.
I was gonna say how big's your car, but I guess not that big. Then. So you actually hired a truck to do it.
Yeah, you get a U-Haul and you just load up. People are looking at you funny, but it was good money, and you're like, all right, this is kind of cool.
So and then, I didn't actually know then that you got into retail arbitrage first, which I guess, like you say, a lot of people did during COVID. What was it then that made you then want to move into doing private label?
Yeah, so then you go from that and you're like, okay, right, that ends, right? COVID's done, you can't play these stupid games. And so then you go online arbitrage and you start selling shoes and everything else. So you run through that gambit, and that kind of got old. And then I jumped into wholesale for like 6 months, and all the while you're getting IP complaints from everything you sell, right? So you get good at something, or you start selling something in mass and you're like, okay, I figured this out. And then you get an IP complaint and you can't sell that and you have to find something else, right? So there's just no consistency. And yeah, the money was okay, but you just like, what am I building, right? I'm just waiting for somebody to smack an IP complaint on me and send me back to square one. So I got over IP complaints and was like, I want to own my own IP so I can send these out myself, the cease and desist letters. And that's pretty much where it started. I got fed up with IP complaints.
Were you working? You still got a full-time gig, right, at this point?
Yeah. Yep. 9 to 5 through all this, just filling my house with way too much packing gear and stuff like that. So yeah, I mean, the whole idea was to center down and be a little more focused, right? That's private label when you first think about it. And so that's what led me to like, okay, I need to own my own brand and build my own thing. And once you're kind of in there's like a Twitter sphere of all these FBA people, you see enough. And I followed Evan, who's one of the OG or Honest FBA members, and just kind of talking to him. He was like, I would try it. Like, it's good to me. He seemed like a straight shooter. So that's kind of how I found about you guys.
I should know that. Oh, nice. So,
Yeah.
so at this point, then, so you've gone through RA, OA. The only thing, did you touch wholesale then?
Yeah.
You did all four. You've done all four of the models.
Yeah. Wholesale was just like a extended version of OA. I did it only for like 3 months before I got fed up with it, and it was the same thing. The same.
So
idea.
okay, so now you're into private label then. So you came in. When was it you joined Honest FBA then?
I think it was April of last year. So like basically 1 year ago.
So you came in, and Alex, you remember him coming in, don't you?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I remember. Well, the thing I remember is you would join pretty much every like live coaching call that we did, but you were always like on your phone, like sat on your porch or just like whatever. And I just always thought it was impressive that like it obviously wasn't the most convenient time for you, but you always showed up. So talk us through then those early stages then of moving into private label and going from doing OA wholesale and then actually diving in and trying to find your own products and your own brands. What was that transition like?
Yeah, it takes. It was a month of just soaking it up. Right, just I probably went down 4 or 5 different rabbit holes, and you're looking at products. You're like, what is this? Why would I sell this? Right, and you just kind of start sharpening and whittling down like why you would or would not sell it. So yeah, I was kind of a fly on the wall for about a month, right? Just joining everything, listening to everything, trying to figure out why this is working for this person or why this wouldn't work. Yeah, so it was, and there was a lot of, for me, I was always in the DMs of all the other Honest FBA members. And so that helped me a lot, right? You're just talking to people instead of like this whole group that you're in. I would just talk one-on-one and listen to opinions. So yeah, I went down a whole rabbit hole, and I think I was telling you, Alex, about some product, and you were like, yeah, you could do that. I'm like, all right, I'll just do it, and let's see if that works out. And then from there, just being just constantly engaged and just trying to learn things, right? You don't really know what you're trying to learn yet, but you're just learning. And so the funny thing that I hit up Ben Perry, who's another one who's been on this channel before. He didn't know this, but he was actually the one who sparked the idea of my product. And so he was just in the group talking about this and that. And he's like, this would be a cool thing. And so I went back and told him, I think a week ago, it's like, Ben, thanks again for my product idea. And he's like, what? And so we went back to our DMs like 7 months ago. And he's like, no way. Wow, I did not think you would go that far with it. And obviously it was iterated 20 times from what he started, but it was like just hearing how other people thought about it is what sparked like, okay, my idea was a good idea, but if I did this, it just kind of rolled.
I mean, just to dive into the juicy stuff, and then we can come back to this point.
Yeah.
For everybody watching, you launched your product in the past, what, like week and a half, 2 weeks or so, your first product?
Yeah, 2 weeks, 2.5 weeks.
And it's gone pretty well, right? Like in terms of your sale. Have you got your app with you that you can show us?
Yeah, it's gone better than I probably would have ever imagined.
We should have pre-planned this bit.
Yeah.
And
I do it in units sold because I'm trying to calm it down, but.
So what have you done then in revenue since you launched? Because you've had a few days where you've done over $4,000 in sales, right?
Yeah, we're sitting at like 35K for 2.5 weeks.
Which is pretty crazy because it took me and Tom probably 18 months maybe to get to that point. And you've done that in 2.5 weeks, which is pretty crazy. So
for sure.
So those have been the results, right? So you were talking to Ben Perry, speaking to different people. How did you go then from having that idea to where you are now? Like, what was that process like?
Yeah. I think it definitely starts with, I was kind of speaking about this before, but it starts with like, will this map out with a lot of room with margin, right? Like you're not going to be perfect. There's going to be things. So I was just like modeling for the worst case scenario, right? Like, okay, if this thing gets returned at a 10% clip and it just is not going great, can I still turn like 12, 15% margin? Yeah, if yes, okay, we'll start with that. Like, okay, now I know this is worth my time to go see if I can make it work. And then from there, I didn't really, I kind of took a different route in the sense that living in the States, you feel the turmoil between China and sitting presidents and everything else and all the tariffs. And it doesn't really seem like that's going to be ending anytime soon or cooling off anytime soon. And so I wanted to source into a different country. And so that's kind of where, like, a common theme of how I was able to do this well, looking back, is anytime I was like, okay, I want to do something a little different than what everyone else talks about, there was somewhere I could go or someone I could talk to. And so I ended up talking to the other Ben, and he got me into some really good help in Vietnam, and they were able to get me really good options to choose from when it came to sourcing product. And so that was probably step number one, was just getting to a good product source so that margins
Is
were
that where
good.
you sourced from in the end?
Yeah.
Was it a Viet? Ah, right. Okay. So
Yeah.
did you have options in China and Vietnam, and you chose Vietnam in the end?
Yeah. I ran through it and it was similar pricing. So I was like, if they're the same, I'd rather go with some safety, just in the sense of like, I don't really have to worry about a whole lot going to Vietnam, and they're just as excited to have my business, right? Their pricing is good. Shipping's a little trickier, but that's, you can figure that out. So yeah, Vietnam has been awesome in that sense.
Because that's Ben Perry. So Ben Perry's also been on the channel a couple of times, and he recently did. He recently went to Vietnam on like a trip where he visited his factory, and he also did.
Ben Leonard, you mean, mate? Ben
Ben
Leonard.
Leonard, yeah,
Ben, there's too many Bens in the community.
there
Ben,
is.
sorry, Ben Leonard. There's Ben Perry, who's also been on the channel. Ben Leonard is another Honest FBA member who a few years ago had an exit of a brand called Beast Gear that we've interviewed and spoke to a couple of times on the channel. But yeah, recently he did a talk a couple of weeks ago on sourcing in Vietnam. It was only actually when I went on your listing, after you told me it was live, and I
Yeah,
went on your listing to check it out, and I saw Vietnam, and then I remembered that you'd sourced it in Vietnam, because that's quite rare. Like, not a lot of people kind of do that. But so that
yeah,
experience went really well for you then. Like,
yeah,
what was it then about? A lot of people watching this will be thinking, how, like, the main thing is, how do you find that first product? And what
yeah,
really impressed me with speaking to you was, it was almost like you never really had any doubt. Like, you picked it, we discussed it, and you were just like, right, I'm going for it. What was it about the product and the niche that made you feel so confident that you could pull it off?
yeah. I guess it's one of those things where it clicks, and it's something that you see that you would use in the world, right? Or it's something that you see somebody else would actually covet using in, right? You're not like, I don't get it. So just in the sense of like, this will help somebody, right? Or this will alleviate somebody's issue or problem or whatever they're trying to fix. So that part made it click. And then it's funny. So like all these things recently have been coming up, but right, like I kind of got the whole masterclass from Ben Leonard, like whatever, 8 months ago on Vietnam. So that was like, okay, check that box. And then I was using Google Trends just to see how had this been trending. And it was like 13% up year over year just on what it was searching for. And then you go look, and this product kind of lends itself to Amazon, just in the sense that there's a lot of variations, and there was not, like, nobody else was selling this on a D2C site. So you could see, okay, there's just not a whole lot of other places people are going. And you don't see it in retail very often either. So it just kind of kept, right. The more I looked, and it's a long process, right? Trying to figure out pricing and and getting samples, right? It takes months, just especially from Vietnam. So throughout those gaps of waiting for samples, I was always just, oh, but what if I check exploding topics, or what if I check Google Trends, and does it keep reinforcing my thesis? And so it did. And so by the time you get halfway through, you're like, no, I'm going to make this work, because everything more I see supports putting the extra effort in to make this work, because you hit blocks here and there, right? You slow down a lot throughout a year of doing this.
Do you find, Tim, because so to reveal a little bit more, I guess, like variation wise, normally the advice that we give, and especially for new people, is like, don't go for a lot of variations, because it can be a bit of a nightmare with stock management and knowing what to order. You've got a shitload of variations, right? So you went pretty ballsy from the off. So talk us through, like, why did you do that? And even this far in now, so what, you're 2.5, 3 weeks in, how was any lessons from that, or would you do anything differently at this point?
Yeah, I would still, I kind of had to do it in this scenario. People would hear variations and they're thinking like, because I have 16 variations to launch with. So I have 16 different ASINs running at first. And it's actually amazing what you can do to predict with the tools that there are. Like, from running for 2 weeks, the predictions are pretty close. Like, we're within.
Oh, really?
Yeah, like there's maybe 1 or 2 variations where I'm like, oh man, I missed that, but you expect you're going to miss. But majority, we'll call it 14 out of the 16, are like, yeah, that is within reason for me to be like, it nailed what I was hoping for. But that said, though, when it came to launching, it was a nightmare, because as soon as I made one mistake on the parent ASIN, it was, okay, you got to go change 16 more. And you got to go. I did it probably 5 different times where I shut it down, restart, and yeah, first 4 days with launch was not great because of the variation issue. But
were you going offline and back on again? What were you? Because I know you. Yeah, it was stop starting. Was that? Do you mean your campaigns, or do you mean you have to like delete and relist the listing?
Yeah, it was full delete for the first couple days. I tried to put a video in, and so that bumped something. Like, it was basically the sizing chart that would help conversion. It's basically one of the most important parts. And so as soon as that bumped out, I didn't realize it until we launched, and conversion rate was sitting at like 6%. I'm like, I'm freaking out, because you're like, this doesn't really work at 6%. But yeah, you just kind of look at it and you go, okay, why? And you just look at it as like, it goes back to where it clicked for me, and why I had confidence in it is I just look at it from, how would you perceive this? And so I was like, okay, how would I look at my listing? What was wrong? Like, oh, I can't make a purchase because I don't understand what's going on. And so I said, okay, if I was making a purchase, what do I need to do that? And as soon as I did that, which sounds like super simple, it went from 6% to 24% conversion rate. Wow. It took 12 hours of stress making the moves, but it was all the difference.
Yeah, because when you showed your results, you'd kind of kept quiet about it, because I just remember the process of you showing me the product, me giving you the feedback, and then you just being like, I want to kind of go big on this, right? And we've had a couple of other people within the community that want to go big, and for us, we want to make sure that people understand the risks, obviously, with going a little bit bigger. But we don't want to put people off doing that, because if you're comfortable with doing it, you've got all the resources there. You've got the help. You've got everything, in order to pull it off, and it's obviously worked. But we're still always a little bit nervous, because we feel, responsible for everybody that joins the community and launches products. So we want everybody to really kill it. And you kind of kept quiet in those first few days, and then all of a sudden you were like, oh yeah, by the way, I launched and it's going really well, and everybody was like, congratulating you and stuff. But I remember I remember one of the discussions that we had, which kind of was the big factor for why you launched, or one of, from what I remember, was just having that belief that you were able to create a brand and a product that just looked so much better than everybody else. And this is something that we talk a lot with product research. So what was your thought process there with looking at the niche and how you might bring something kind of new in there?
Yeah. Yeah. I guess that's definitely one of the first couple, right? Is like, you look at it and you go, okay, I think I can add something that pops to the eye, right? Goes back to what would I want to see if I was looking for this? And everything I saw already in that niche, or the niche, was pretty mundane. And it's like, okay, I think I can beat that, right? Like, I think I can do better than that. And then once we did that, or we started to get finished creatives and stuff like that, you start to go, okay, like this looks a lot better.
It looks
and it
great,
gets you
yeah.
really excited. You're like, okay, I would buy this. And so, right, that probably came 4 months ago. And so that was after stacking a couple other things on top of each other. And so those all you're just building confidence. And like you said, there's a couple other guys that have gone big within the community. And once again, I just was in the DMs with Tom and just talking about it. Like, how did it go? What did you see? What worked for you? And we would just send stuff back and forth, and that builds your confidence. And then, this can be done. You just have to kind of push through it. Right? If you're going to hit stuff, just push through, really. Like, I hit some roadblocks that maybe took a week, right? But if you really this is going to work, it only takes a week, or it takes maybe 2 or 3 weeks, but you get past it. And so, yeah, seeing really bad listings is very exciting, though. So,
I mean,
that they look terrible.
This was because when you were showing it to me, and it's quite a big niche, and like we said, it's a big swing. But that's what we were kind of discussing, right? Is like none of these listings look that great, and whenever we're talking about product research, this is really one of the main things that we try and get people to kind of assess, is like using a bit of common sense. Do you look at those top sellers and do you think, holy shit, they look incredible? Or do you feel like, oh, they look a bit shit? Because if it's the second one and they look a bit shit, then if you come in and make something amazing, which you've done an amazing job with the branding and understanding your customer and everything, and it'd be good to hear a little bit about that, but that just puts you already ahead of everybody. And then if you combine that with like what you said with the pricing and knowing that, okay, my margins are going to be strong enough, all it really takes after that is kind of ordering enough stock and doing the launch, right? And just ticking those boxes, and then you get the results, which you've shown us, right?
Right. And that's what everyone wants to think about, like the downside. And it's like, you almost have to think about the upside if you're going to do everything right. And so I think about, if you do everything right, your downside is basically breaking even, right? If you really build a good listing and you have the right margin, I had like a worst case scenario. I lose like 20% of what I put into this. And it's like, you lose that in crypto yesterday, So I was like, this is a no brainer.
I think that's like a real, that's such a good point, because I think if you follow the fundamentals of Amazon, and we always like bang on about this on the channel, but like if you follow the fundamentals and do everything properly, like you obviously can't guarantee success, but worst case, like you said, like we've had products that have failed, and like by failed, we just mean like they haven't hit the numbers we wanted them to. So we've just sold them out, and everything we've launched, every single thing ever, has always sold, because again, if you do the fundamentals, you make a good listing, like like objectively, if you with your listing, it's the best one in the niche, and that, like, show that to a bunch of people, everyone's going to agree. So gives you so much confidence there. Like, but having that's like the good business sense to know, like, you can't guarantee everything, but like worst case scenario, a 20% loss, but more likely just break even. That's massive. It's such a huge confidence. And Tom, who you were speaking about, funnily enough, both of you guys had come from that OA wholesale path onto private label, and he was similar to you, where like he kind of thought, right, I want to build brand equity now. Like I've got the skill set. Both of you learned super quick. But the other thing I want to point out is you guys had so much confidence in Amazon as a platform, where like Tom and yourself know, like, if you make a good listing and good products, it will sell. Things just sell on Amazon. People are so ready to buy. And I mean, do you count much of your kind of confidence to that, like for the kind of the trading 2 years that you had leading up to private label?
For sure. Right. When you can sell 100 unit heaters in a day, right, and do 10,000 K in sales, and you're just like, I don't know where these people are, but they're out there. You realize that there's just so much demand for so many things. You can sell just about anything if you do it right. And so, yeah, that's where the confidence comes from to go bigger.
And definitely one of the things I think that gave you that confidence was the branding, like we said. So it'd be cool just to hear a little bit about, because I was just really impressed with how you did that. You know, everything with the copy and how you presented the product. So like, how did you go about, like, I mean, obviously you don't have to reveal the brand name and everything, but your brand name's great as well. So like, how did you go about that whole creative side of the branding and the name and everything like that?
Yeah. I'm actually not very kind of like a big idea guy, but I'm not that creative. So I definitely got help when it came to like putting a vision to make it look really good. But I just thought about, right, like who are you selling to? What are the type of things that they like? Right. I just had I had my own, I had a baby throughout this whole thing. And it's like, okay, and I'm not in the baby niche, but I'm in a kind of similar niche as far as who's buying these types of product. And so I was just in my head thinking I'm selling to women 30 to 50 years old. And so I kind of based a lot of what I wanted to do and what I wanted to speak to with that in mind. Did I do perfect? Maybe not, but I generally got the gist of like colors and like taking a little bit of the seriousness out of it and stuff like that to just, it gives it a different light and it speaks more to who I thought was the right or who the person is that's buying. It's hard to know for sure, but so far it's been mainly women buying my product. So in that sense, I was somewhat right, but getting good help when it comes to the creative was, at first I was a little nervous spending, a little extra money than I wanted to doing it, but it paid off like 5 to 10 fold what I would have thought. Like it changed. I could not have done what was done the same way. So
I think you paid it off in that first day you hit $4,000 on your like fourth day in. So you probably, I think you paid it off then. Yeah, for sure. Do you think within, because your product, and we touched on it earlier about it being, it's custom designed, right? You kind of did bring something fairly new to the market. So what was the experience of going for a custom product from the offer? How did you work with the designer? Was it with the factory? How did that work?
Yeah, so I started with Fiverr, right? You just get some really cheap help from Fiverr and spin up something that looks right so that at least the factory knows what it generally will look like. And then I sent in a competitor's product to be like square one. And then from there, it was probably 10 back and forth iterations of just making it my own. And yeah, I needed somewhere to start. I didn't really know how to start otherwise. So start with the competitor. And from there, it's actually a lot different than the competitor. So that feels good. But yeah, it's just, I don't know. One of the things that has kind of caught me off guard is how cool it is when you build something yourself and then somebody else actually likes it. So you get like your first, I think I got my first couple 5-star reviews and one of this person was just raving about it. I'm like,
oh, and it feels good, right?
Good? Yeah. Isn't that good? Yeah, that's cool.
It really does feel good. Yeah. It really is incredible though. It's like you've found this product or you found this niche and then you've created something yourself, the brand, how it looks, how it feels, the materials. You put so much time and so much effort into it, and then when you get those reviews and people are over the moon, then it feels crazy. Yeah.
But you're also thinking like all you're thinking when you launch is like 1-star reviews coming 100%.
Oh yeah.
Right? That's all you can think about. And then you get good ones. You're like, oh no, this is really cool.
Yeah.
And Tim, can I ask you, how many units do you reckon you sold prior to getting a single review live?
Probably a couple hundred at least. Yeah.
Did that surprise you at all? Because that's something that we think people, especially on YouTube, people are always like, guarantee a few reviews, and people like some people don't even turn on their PPC until they have some, and we just think that's
Yeah.
like ridiculous, really. Because if you make a good product and the listing's good, as you saw, like, people will just buy it from day one.
Yep.
But was there any hesitation for you there, or were you kind of confident that after that first, I guess not after the first few days when you got kind of the issues, but once that
Yeah.
first real day started rolling in?
Yeah. Even when the real day started rolling it, right? You're still thinking this thing could flop with a 1-star review, but it took, and once you see one 5-star review and then you see two, then even if the one comes in, this is good, right? And so it's just the confidence builds on itself. But I think I've sold 1,400 units and gotten 4 to 6 reviews, right? So it takes
They,
some
they,
time.
There's a little delay at the start, to be honest. Amazon, they
Yeah.
can be really slow to bring in through. So I'm sure you'll get. I mean, look, most review rates are what, like, I think a 5% review rate is really good
Yeah.
in
It'll be
e-com.
fun.
So yeah, they'll start flying in thick and fast. One quick point before we move on to the towards the end of this was you said about the samples, and I know it's a bit like nerdy Amazon stuff, but I think that's what people want to hear. So you said you had 10 versions of the product, and I wanted to make a point of that because some people don't order any samples. Some people just order one and they're like, this will be good enough, I'll throw it up. You didn't do that, and that's such an important lesson because you could, I mean, look, it took you a lot longer to get to market, but look at the win that you've got off it straight away. And I think people it's so tempting just to rush into it and get something live. But I mean, was the first version just awful, or was it like towards the end, was it like minor changes for kind of a version 8, 9, 10, or were you still making big shifts every time?
Yeah, it was just small stuff by the end, right? You're just taking an inch off here or adding an inch there. But I also wasn't, because I work I have a 9 to 5. And so this wasn't make or break. And I was like, I'm just going to take my time. If it's going to pay off on its own time, and just, it took a year. That is what it is, right? Like, completely worth it in 2 weeks, right? You just have to know that it's going to be worth it in a month after you finally put a year in. So yeah, I just kept saving up some money, gave me more time to be more ready, right? And so I think the longer it takes, especially if you don't have this huge budget, the longer it takes, the better, right? You're just going to be more well prepared. You're just going to see some other people launch and get ideas from them, right? That was probably the last 2 months before I launched. I was watching all these other people launch, going, okay, let me adjust this, right? That didn't go well, or this went well. I took some stuff from Tom that was like, he's like, look at this. It's running at a 7 ROAS on my PPC. I'm like, great, I'm going to do that. 100%. Thank you. So
I,
you just learn.
and I think like one of the things that we stress a lot is honestly, like, your first, a lot of people want to just make money very quickly, right? And you can definitely do it quicker than a year, than 12 months, right? Like, some people can get it done in 6 months. Some people move super quick. Some people it takes longer. But the thing is like, what you've done in that 12 months is you've launched a really successful product. But like, what you keep saying is like, you learn so much. So you've already said a few things to me where I'm like, you're just going to continue to go on it and crush it. And like, you've learned so much in that time, how to launch the product. Now I'd imagine you feel so confident that you can scale this within this one product, but within the brand. You've already mentioned a few other products. So like, how do you feel now after that time and what you've learned? How prepared are you to scale and grow brands? And because you mentioned before, like D2C and retail, these are kind of things that a lot of beginners might have to be Googling, or what's D2C, or most people might understand retail, but they're not super beginner type things. But you're already thinking of those things, right? So like, how do you feel for like the future and your plans for what you're going to do now after getting this product live and it being a success?
Yeah, the funny thing is, I remember probably the first month I was learning about private label, I didn't even know what DTC stood for or what that meant. And so, yeah, that's something I think you speak about every once in a while, is like, even if it all went to zero, I got a lot of knowledge, right? Like I've learned a lot in a year. Like I'm a whole, I think, completely different. And so, right, that kind of just leads to the next thing you want to do. It gives me confidence to be able to go take whatever size loan that has a good rate and know that I can turn that into sales and repay it. Whether I'm going to do that, haven't decided, but the next move is going and building my own website and selling on my own website, selling in a completely different vertical, but knowing that you can use the same principles, not as Amazon, but in the sense of launching it, going through all the, P's and Q's, crossing all the T's, dotting all the I's, that type of thing. You just change it to a different vertical. And so, like you guys have done, you just kind of change. You learn more, and then you can do more. And so, yeah, I guess I'm back at square one because I've learned everything I needed to learn for launching a product on Amazon. And now I want to learn everything I need to know to launch it on my own website. And so it just keeps compounding. And so I'm back to being a little shrimp.
Do you think, Tim, you're gonna launch more products like within the next year, kind of under the brand on Amazon? Or I know you've got a load of variations, so it's kind of a fair bit to manage. But is there room for you? Have you already got kind of 2 and 3, like products 2 and 3 lined up that you could move into?
Yeah, I have a consumable product that is on its way to me now to be tested.
Nice.
And yeah, I mean, it's a whole different rabbit hole to go down to, speaking of it, but it will get launched on Amazon at some point. It may not be the first place I launch it. I want to learn how to launch on, say, TikTok, or I want to learn how to launch on my own website. Haven't decided which way I'm going to go, but I know as soon as I want to, I can turn the Amazon switch on with that product at any point, right? So I just have that in my back pocket, and I can use whatever I'm making and doing with, I'm going to add variations to what I'm doing on the product at Amazon and use that to fuel my learning on the other side. So it just becomes hopefully a flywheel that becomes dangerous.
It's awesome, man, to hear you say that, because what we've really tried to do within the community is, like, as our brand has grown and we've learned every like 6 months, you look back and you think, I didn't know anything 6 months ago. Because Tom and I now, we've launched 2 subscription-based products. We've got another 4 on the way in the next 2 to 3 months. We're looking at retail. We'll be moving into D2C. All of these things that you're talking about is what we're doing with our brand, right? And we're trying to share as much of that as we can within the community. And it's just awesome to hear that, like, you're already thinking about those things. And again, it's like, even if this product, I'm sure it's not going to, even if this product didn't work out the way that you wanted it to, or whatever, is like, you've got those skills then, because Tom and I, like, we want to sell our brand in the next 2 years. And then I feel like we're just sat there and we're like, what's next? Because you've got this arsenal of skills that's just ready to go. Do you know what I mean? It's like, just point me in the right direction and I'll take it on,
Yeah. I'm almost like, if this flops, I got a really good idea anyway. It's coming right behind it. I bet you
exactly.
It beats it, And I was thinking about it recently. It's the Amazon FBA journey is just like a gateway drug journey, right? So you start with retail arbitrage. That was the gateway drug to online arbitrage, which was the gateway drug to wholesale, which was the gateway drug to private label, which is now my gateway drug to D2C. Whatever comes after that, I don't really care. But you keep, as long as you're pretty curious and want to better it, you just keep moving down the line and you learn more.
Yeah, I love it, man. It's exactly it. Like, you're the perfect person for us to join the community. And hearing you say that after we've said this so many times, and you've got that mindset as well. That's why, like, I think you were drawn to joining us, and we chatting and stuff has always been great with you, because you've just been, on that level where we know we can, give you the little bit of guidance here, but you've just worked it out as well, and you've already got your sights on those things. But I completely agree. It's like, you do one thing and also it's like we had a lot of limiting beliefs with ours sometimes where it was a bit like, oh, you know, could we launch a subscription based product?
Right.
And you have that limiting belief sometimes. But I think, you know, being part of a community and stuff, it can really help with that, you know, when you see other people doing it and then it just gives you that confidence, right? And then, yeah, like you say, you can just go and take bigger and bigger things on.
Right. That's what gives you the confidence for a big swing is, you know, you got like probably 5 to 10 people that truly have your back doing it that are going to be like, don't do that. It won't work. And you can believe them. Or, sure, why not? Go for it. And that works too. So that definitely is a huge piece to be able to go, right? I had to go a little big if I'm doing 35K within 2 weeks. So never really lost any sleep over it, believe it or not.
Amazing.
The Iceman. Well, Tim, we'll have you back on, and maybe we'll do like 12-month circle back and see what you did in year one. I've got a feeling you're going to be pushing up towards 7 figures in your first year. So yeah, mate,
Sure.
love to see it. Thank you for coming on. And we'll catch up with you in about 12 months' time. Oh, go on.
So I'm sorry to cut you off. I wanted to just ask one final question because it'll be a good soundbite.
Well, right, you can do the wrap up now because that was me. That was me giving it my all.
I'm going to do the wrap up and then I killed it for him. Just before Tom was about to do the wrap up, if you did have one bit of advice for somebody looking to get into Amazon FBA and private label, what would your advice be? Apart from joining Honest FBA.
Right.
Just kidding.
I mean, yeah, that's kind of where you start. But I mean, one piece is hard. So you have to go kind of super macro with how you think. If you're going to just say one thing, you got to be really curious and really want to learn. Like curiosity is something that I've learned that is a sneaky, like entrepreneurial tool set that people don't really talk about. But just being super curious means you're going to learn the next thing. And then if you learn that, you're going to wonder why and then wonder why. And if you keep doing that enough, you'll get to an endpoint that is pretty cool. So just keep being curious,
Love it.
dive down a rabbit hole and don't stop.
I love it. Well, I will finally wrap it up and I'll let you go, Tim, because I know it's the middle of the day for you, but I genuinely really appreciate you coming on, and I'm just over the moon that the product's gone well for you, and I love chatting to you because you've got a great mindset and you're going to go on and kill it, and I'm super glad that you're part of the community, and thanks for coming on. See you in the next one.
Yeah. Appreciate it, boys.
See ya.